Hello and welcome, everybody. This is Jeremiah Rangel from IntraAwareness podcast. Consciousness is contagious, and today we're going to be talking about Jamy Schumacher, which is an up and coming change maker, an up and coming light being, somebody who is stepping out and really stepping up into her own life, her own life's purpose, her own life's path. And I just couldn't not have her on the podcast and feature her. She's one of the most amazing people I've ever met, and Today we're going to listen to a little bit more about her story, and one of the first things, let's just jump right into it, that I want to talk about. You and I are both wearing these malas, and you gave me this mala yesterday, and this is kind of a representative of your generosity and just gifts, but also channeling spirituality and making it into kind of the physical. So can you just tell me a little bit more about these malas, what mine represents, what yours represents, and what kind of called you to make these?
Sure. I purchased a mala. I saw one online and purchased it, felt drawn to it. And when I got it, I looked at it and realized that it was something I could create myself. And in creating them, infuse it with my own intentions, my own energy, my own protection. And I knew we were graduating, and of course I wanted to bring a gift for everybody that I've been on this journey with, to show the gratitude that I feel for everybody. So I got online and started shopping for different beads, and it was really kind of funny what came up, what they represent. So I selected a variety of beads, and they all came, and it was an interesting process to put them together and how they came together for each individual person in our class, and they definitely fit with everybody, and ended up being exactly what they needed at the time. So it really was a process of not trying to figure it out so much, but just allowing the things to come together, and knowing and trusting that they would be exactly what they needed to be. I actually brought them up with me. I didn't get them finished and was working on them the night before at Gina's house, another person in our NLP class who's graduating with us, and put them together on her dining room table while we were talking about things. So she also participated in kind of clearing the energy of them and charging them with some intention as well. Helped me, she can kind of read energy in that way. So she was kind of feeling them and helped me determine which one was going to who.
So these mala beads, for those of you who have never seen them or heard of them or worn them, mala beads are these beads, and it's like a necklace. And originally, from my understanding, they come from more of India, more from the Eastern, and they can use for spiritual purposes, but you can also put your own intentions into it. And I remember going to see the Dalai Lama in 2008 or 7 or something like that at the University of Minnesota, and they were selling like a cabana, this like pop-up booth, and they're selling all these mala beads, and I already had mine from India, being initiated at the Winnis University, going to an esoteric school. So I've always had since then I understand what they are, and most malas have 108 beads. Do you know how many beads does this one have?
It has 108 plus the marker beads and the guru bead.
Yeah, very cool. So I like to actually use malas as spiritual technology, is to do a mantra or a specific word or a name of the divine you can actually chant over and over, and it puts you into a high level of consciousness, which is really, really cool. And so that's what a mala beads are wearing. And you can see in the picture on this podcast, we're both wearing our mala beads, which is really cool. And Jamy just graduated from the Oneness NLP class, the Neurolinguistic Psychology and Neurolinguistic Programming, and I just want you to really talk a little bit more about your whole world's kind of exploding in a good way in the last 6 months, and a lot of things, your heart's completely, opening, and your mind's everything's being synced up, and action, movement starting to happen. So tell me more about kind of what drew you into this NLP path and the spiritual path, and kind of mirroring both of them, marrying both of them, and then what are you going to do with it?
Okay. Well, I stumbled upon NLP, or IntraAwareness, I suppose. I stumbled upon IntraAwareness through a friend, just having lunch one day, and she'd seen it, and she obviously listened to the guiding in her to check it out, and also to share it with me. Thought, what the heck, I'll give it a try. So I drove up. It's about a 4-hour drive from home to Minneapolis here, and spent a long weekend exploring the 101 course, which I highly recommend to everybody. I try to tell people about it a lot, that it's beyond words. It's that place beyond words, that it's life-changing in a way that you can't really define. So I've always considered myself a spiritual person, been connected and guided in a way that I was aware of. Not always comfortable with it, maybe. Grew up with a religious background, but also felt the pulling of the energetic reality of spirituality. And so when I came to this NLP class, even just the first day in the introduction, there was this aha moment for me that it was the combination of the two. I always felt like the traditional spirituality that I'd experienced as far as intuition and feeling and all of that was so hard to pinpoint and so hard to define, so hard to grasp. And it really took a high level of trust to use that to help somebody because it was something in my head somewhere far away.
Kind of vague in a way.
Exactly. Yeah. NLP brought in this component that addresses where we live on Earth in physical bodies in a way that I've not seen any other practice or technique do, that it marries the physical aspect of our bodies, of our brains, of our chemistry, of the way we work with the spirituality and the connection that we don't necessarily see with our eyes. So on the first day of the 101, it was like I knew this is exactly where I needed to be and exactly the tool that I needed to achieve the dreams that I've always known I would achieve. I just wasn't sure how. So, yeah.
So now that you received these tools and techniques and you went through the whole training of the practitioner level, a lot of things were coming up for you in terms of ideas of how you want to bring it maybe into the school system. There's a lot of people that, a lot of this huge, we talked about this massive awakening that's happening, not as a spiritual concept, vague, but to put like to everybody's minds to practical. Look at from 1901 to 1950, how much has changed, 1950, 1980, since the internet, since electricity, since the smartphones, since there's so many things that are crescendoing upwards very quickly. So I don't know if anybody can deny through technology and growth. And we were talking about it right before the podcast started as children. I just saw on a different podcast, actually, somebody was talking about how children is, I think it was actually the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. He was talking about him and one of his friends who was another comedian were talking about how, you know, I forgot what it was, but it was something like where kids grew up, you know, they would say things like if you were, you know, gay was a bad thing, or if you were black, or if you were anything different, or whatever different is, Mexican, or you just didn't, you know, like sports, whatever. But now people are just so open. There's awakening where these youth, these millennials, or these kids that are even younger, that are just, they're just them. You know, there's nothing wrong with being them, and those kind of labels don't stick. They're just like, well, what's wrong with you for, you know, are you not happy? Like, they're making labels and lashing out. So just how things have changed and how the leaders like yourself and are going to be, and myself are going to be working together, and people like us are going to want to make a huge difference in the education system, how people give and receive information. So what do you want to do with this in the education system? And I know that you're involved with the Unschooling program, which I found a little bit about, and it's fascinating. I always want to learn more, for sure. Yeah.
So defining myself as an unschooler is actually relatively new.
So for people that don't know, I've never heard of that term. Can you explain what that is?
Well, unschooling, it's really different for a lot of people, but it's the act of educating your children, for me anyway, by living life, not using a curriculum particularly, but using experience. And for me, unschooling is allowing my children to unfold. Through this process, through the NLP certification and a lot of the healing that I've done, I realized a lot of it was undoing all of the things I'd been taught I was or should be or had to be. And so by unschooling my children, I hope to give them the opportunity to unfold into exactly what they are without me or others telling them what that should look like or what it's supposed to be. And it's a really beautiful process to watch, you know, my kids, my two daughters, grow into who they are. I mean, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. It's not always beautiful.
And unicorns, yeah.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's messy sometimes and it's stressful.
Give an example, like how is it messy sometimes? What does that mean, just for people that aren't in that system?
Sure. Well, so my daughter Sterling is 10 years old. And, as far as traditional learning goes, she has dyslexia, which means she doesn't process information the same way as far as it's an auditory processing disorder. So just the way that she takes in information is different than a lot of other people. Seen as a disability, typically in a school system.
In traditional system, yeah.
Right. She sees it as a strength. She sees that her mind processes differently and she can do things better than some people can that think traditionally. There becomes this pressure, though, as you do interact with the outside world or people that are kind of outside of your bubble and your comfort zone and like-minded people. The pressure, well, she's 10 years old. How well is she reading? What level is she in math? All of that sort of thing. And I'm in this place where it's like I want to trust Sterling to explore and learn the things that she needs in her life for the accomplishments that she wants to achieve. So I know that I took math every year for the 12 years that I was in school, or however many years it is. I don't use a lot of it. I mean, this is just a specific example. Whereas I know Sterling will learn the things, the processes that she needs in order to accomplish the goals that she wants to achieve, and she won't have the extra time invested in learning the things that she really is not going to use, doesn't need. And she does beautifully at it. She actually works better backwards. She can... I know in school we learned equations. 12 divided by 3 equals 4 on a piece of paper. And then we had to apply that to word problems. If I had 12 apples and I needed, that whole thing.
Driving by the street.
Exactly.
And there's 30-degree wind from the north. What state would I be in? I don't know.
Yeah. So she is practical. Like if you say, there's a 12 apples and we have this many baskets, she knows the answer because it's a real thing. It's a problem that she needs to solve. If I put the numbers on a piece of paper in an equation, it takes her a little bit longer to figure out.
Interesting.
So I like that she's using it in the applied way. The process of schooling is to get you to be able to apply it, and she can apply it. So when I'm in my heart space, I know that she's achieving what she needs to. When I start to compare her to who's in school and what grade level is she reading at and all of that, it gets I get anxious, and I need to remind myself that I'm trusting her, and it's not going to look the same, and it's okay.
So that programming might be from your programming, because she doesn't have that. She doesn't know any difference. So you, on some maybe unconscious level, as a part of you, and I would see myself doing the same thing if I was in your situation, is to comparing, well, what about this grade, and what's the standard, national standard, or whatever. So what I'm getting, the insight I'm getting is the unschooling is not only for her, but it's for you as well, and just like for the parents, the teachers' conditioning of this is how we were taught, but it doesn't mean it's the best way. And
Absolutely.
Let's evolve it.
I read something the other day. It said something about trusting children. And the reason that feels so counterintuitive to adults is because we were taught as children that we were not to trust ourselves. We were not worthy of trust. And so it's a process of undoing that for ourselves, to trust ourselves and to trust our children. And it's powerful when you can do that. You treat them, they become people. They are who they are, and you're allowing them to be. So it's pretty awesome.
That's one thing that the NLP in some way is kind of like unschooling or unprogramming of the system that a lot of people have been programmed in a negative way, where a lot of times I've been shared with all my students, and I think I'm actually going to put it into the next manual, is to have a page where they say it's this I, and they're going to write their name. We'll promise not to take out my mother or father issues on Jeremiah, who is the teacher, or any issues that's unresolved from high school or elementary or whatever, because every time we've done a class so far and I haven't addressed this, sometimes people will treat me like how their teacher treated them, and on some level they will regress back to the way their schooling was, and we have to take a moment, kind of go to the bigger picture, to the meta level. It's like, wait a minute, like what's going on? We're even with the test, the way we do the test is it's not like traditional tests where you have to study and then there's no notes and then good luck, and if you pass, then all right, you passed. If you failed, then you have to repeat the whole course. If you pass, then good luck in the world. It's not like that. We actually it's a trick that I learned and this is what I went through my training to get, like I think mine was a 3x5, but I'm a little generous, give a 5x8 post-it note. What are those things called? Postcard. Yeah. Whatever those things are called. And students can write all the notes, and a lot of times they do really well. It's like, well, it's kind of like cheating. Well, but my intention is I want you to get it into your being, download it so you can actually use it, and that's where the majority of it happens, not so much on the test. The test is just proven to your conscious mind. But it's actually when you actually write those little notes and doing that, and it's interesting when people get like a little nervous with the test if they go on my side, because I had the same thing, maybe not as intense as other people, but yeah, it's just the unschooling and reprogramming and finding a better way for all of us.
Yeah, well, and the intention feels different. The intention isn't to test and see what you've learned. The intention is to see you succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't succeed in this first attempt, what do we need to correct in order to see you succeed? So it isn't a test in the traditional sense of to, verify what you did and didn't learn, but really truly to set you on your path in an authentic way.
So how do you, so if you being a teacher, right, how do you, if you have challenging times, because if it's home, it's homeschooling. I met your daughters on several occasions. I think they're some of the most amazing little beings I've ever met. And they're different. They're, the way I'd explain it in my own words, that they're a higher level of consciousness, more intelligent. And I'm somebody who really valued intelligence more than smart. Smart, people would say, I 1 + 1 = this, or, the square root of 81 is this, and I'm so smart because I can recall these things. But to conceptually or intellectualize something, but to be able to do it in real life, I always thought, like, actually to be really practical is a lot more intelligent, to actually take information and be able to do something with it on the fly in real life. And so one of the things that my question for you that I'm curious about is, what do you do if it's homeschooling and then there's emotions and it's with your family? What do you do? Who's your mentor? Who's your teacher? Who's the system with the unschooling? How do you tap into like solutions for situations that come up or charges or things like that?
I mean, it becomes a tribe. You obviously have your other moms, other dads, other families that think the same way. Sometimes it just feels good to realize it's normal. It's part of the process. And it's life for us. So we deal with it the same way we do when charges come up with our partners or our work friends or whoever it is. It's just the same process. Because we don't necessarily call it school. So we're really just living, and when things come up, we talk about them or we address them, or interestingly, I am the mother, I'm the teacher, I'm the adult in the room, but so many times my daughters have said the thing that needed to be said to shift the energy or to change the perspective. So I'm here to learn from them just as much as they're learning from me. And I feel like a lot of people miss value in that. If you feel like you have to lead all the time, you're missing the things that you can take from that situation too. So again, it's back to that, the allowing whatever is to be,
Sounds like a healthy relationship, and that's why my definition of a healthy relationship is where there's an equal balance between giving and receiving, and which is the masculine and feminine energy and things like that. And it sounds like you're not supposed to be the adult all the time, and I have to have all the answers. It's maybe asking them the question. So, what do you feel about it? What is it for you? And to get to find out what the little people, their own little idea of the world is, and helping them really find that for themselves.
Yes, and they feel empowered in that. Because what I want them to become, as a mother, my job is to help them to become healthy, successful adults. And I didn't feel like that's what was happening when I, when like Sterling went to school for a little bit, and just the things that she was learning, the system, like I had a really hard time with her having to ask to go to the restroom. They're just things like that. I understand that they're necessary for a structure. When there is a teacher in charge of a room full of children, there needs to be a structure. So it's not that I don't understand the structure, but just the existence of asking permission to do things that she knows she needs to do. Those things just don't exist in our house. Because we can stay home, we have the opportunity to live in a real world way. My daughters interact with younger children, they interact with children their own age, and they interact with adults. And that's how real life works for me. The first question everybody always asks is, well, how do you socialize them? And I always want to say, have you talked to my children? Like, they're actually quite social little creatures. Yeah. They're articulate and aware of themselves. And so, maybe they don't have play dates every day with kids their exact age. I mean, Rumi, my 6-year-old, made several
6-year-old
friends, right? Several friends this weekend who are adults, and she can communicate with them, and she can carry on a conversation with them, and it validates her as a person. She knows that she's worthy, she knows that she's valuable, and she knows that she is her own entity. And I think that's what we're all looking for. And because we've gone through a life not treated that way, we as adults are looking for that. We're trying to find that. Our being, our identity, our independence. And we've been trained and taught that we don't necessarily have that without the input of others. So yeah, it's powerful to watch that unfold, especially having gone through the traditional system. And the work that I've had to do, the painful work that I've had to do to undo a lot of it. So, yeah.
I have a client and friend, or a friend and a client in Cincinnati who doesn't do homeschooling yet. I think her children just, I don't know what she's going to fully do. I think they're younger, 2 and 4, I believe. Mm-hmm. But one of the things, she wanted to move to California, and so I don't have children yet. But if I did, this is how I would respond right now: is she wants to, her and her family really want to move in California, but in California they have this law where either you have to get immunized, like you have to get the immunizations, or I think you have to get homeschooled. Those are the only 2 choices, and that's it. And she just doesn't. She's like, my kids are not getting that. And in Cincinnati, where she's at right now, there's 3 different options. One is you can get the immunizations. The second one is there can be medical reasons not to, or the religious reasons. Mm-hmm. Oh wait, no, there's medical and religious. And the first option is, well, obviously they have it available, but it's a conscientious objector or something like that, where you can say, it doesn't feel like this would be the best, for my family, but they're trying to get rid of that, as well. So
I think nationwide they are
trying to get rid of that. We're able to do that. So that's what's really interesting. And I think there's this really insurgence of homeschooling, not where when I was a kid, I think homeschooling's come a long way, and there's a lot more consciousness, like a lot more, like you said, a tribe come together, and like, this is what works and what doesn't work. And your kids are, in my opinion, my experience, more intelligent than the average kids at that age. That's just my experience, and I'll definitely say that. And I think it's just time. I think it's really, really important to, wake up and have a different system. If the system isn't working, you never hear me talking negative about the system or any systems or politics or religion. And I don't value talking negative about anything, but about different solutions. And what about this? And then getting that structure for it, not just taking it as a concept, actually coming together and making it happen.
Exactly. Well, and you just said solutions. And I think what happens in a school system is there are problems, and they're forced to manage the problems. So the focus becomes on the problems and how to minimize and manage problems, as opposed to the freedom to focus on the solutions, on the end result, on what we want here. Because, like I said, I mean, if there's a teacher with a room full of children, the only way to manage that in a real life way is with the structure and the rules. So it's a forced hand, that you have to focus on the problems in that scenario.
In that system, there could be another system where you could have one teacher or a few teachers and a bunch of kids, but then teach them, about your body. Like, you have to go to the bathroom, just say, just communicate. This is what we do in the world, not as adults do. This is just what people that effectively communicate do at any age. And just say, I have to go to the bathroom, and then just more trust and more empowerment, and be open to not mistakes but learning experiences.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And that's the power, for sure, is just acknowledging them as the people that they are, and not treating them like the whole, like a group, but each individual child is exactly who they are, and will become exactly who they're meant to be. No matter how hard I try to steer them in one direction or not, they may take that path for a little bit, but they would ultimately end up exactly where they need to be. And so I'm just taking out that roadblock, that attempt to push them in a certain direction, and just allowing them to be.
So from an education and kind of a little bit of a home life, that's what's going on.
Yes.
But another part of you is kind of getting back into, or getting into more of a coaching role, more of a leadership role. And you and I know about we talked about this, but let's talk about who is your tribe. And a lot of times, one of the things I want the listener to get from listening is to find out who is it that's your tribe in your life. Who are your people? Who is your audience? Who is I just like tribe. That's such a good thing because it's not the humanity. There's a full spectrum of humanity, and not everyone's meant to like each other. But there's nothing wrong with not liking, not even a person, but it's really a behavior or something. And it's in NLP we talk about every single human being has a map of the world. We have a way that we see the world. It's not good, bad, or right or wrong. It's just ours. And in NLP, one of the first things in the first day I try to teach, and it gets more as the training goes on, is not to put our map on other people. Just why? Because it doesn't really work so well in relationships. And people have done it to us, it doesn't feel good. We've done it to other people, didn't feel good. So it's not about right or wrong. I take people into the traditional school system of good, bad, right, wrong, pass, fail, and really focus on what works. And so one of the things that you are starting to focus on is, let's talk a little bit more about the activism word. Let's talk about what are elephants. And I know people know the animal, but who is your target? Who is your audience? And about these change makers.
Okay. Well, so in obviously working with Jeremiah here, he challenged me to, or you challenged me to, channel the energy and the core beliefs, the foundation of where we function from. And the thing that came up for me was elephants, baby elephants in particular. And the key pieces of that were, it's interesting. I mean, so part of the elephant energy is that they are these very massive, powerful animals, but they are not hyper, they are not loud, they are not pushy and, real, I don't know, active is the word that I'm coming up with, but they're steady and they're strong and they have this confidence about them based on just their sheer size. It's powerful. There's nothing that they can't just walk into and move.
Right.
But there are a lot of little details too. They're a matriarchal society, so there is this honoring and respect for the feminine in the lineage. They hold memories. They have great memories and they remember so much. And I feel like a lot of my tribe are old souls. They are deep, old energy that know, and they're here to remember. They're here to bring those memories up, and they're here to heal what they need to heal. The baby elephants is that first of all, they learn from everybody in the tribe. There's not necessarily just the mother of the baby teaches that. All of the women, all of the females in the tribe or in the group teach all of the babies, and they can go to any of the elephants for learning. But they still are learning like how to use their trunk. What's it for? Is it for picking things up? Is it for eating? Is it for playing? Is it for, and all of those things. So as spiritual beings, we're here to learn what our tools are and how to use them all and how to use them most effectively. So I think that's part of my tribe is people that they know they have these gifts. They know that they have abilities. They know that they are powerful, but they're not sure how to use those gifts yet. And we're here to learn together how to use those things, how to be impactful with them, how to create change. And that was the other contrast, is how the change is created in that confident, powerful way. That we stand so strongly and connected in our truth that it can't help but create change, as opposed to, I mean, I've said this, the alternative that came up for me was a hyena in a pack. They're powerful and they can do a lot of things. They can take down a big animal, but they can cause a lot of damage. They can cause a lot of damage. Then they're loud and they bark and they create a lot of energy. They're very fast moving, and that's different than the energy and the change makers that I want. So there are all different kinds of change makers. You can create change in a lot of ways. And I want to connect with people that want to create change from their heart space in a loving and calm way, with the end result of human connection and healing in the end. it's funny, in my own life, I identify with an activist, with being an activist, with creating change. And it used to be rooted more in anger. It was reactive to anger. And I realized, even through my own experiences and being more of a hyena of shouting loud and, hear me roar, that pushed a lot of people away and closed a lot of doors. And people that I loved, people that I still love, it created a wall with which I couldn't effectively connect and heal. So I'm actually was working against my end result. If what I really want is connectivity and healing, yelling and shouting and creating walls is not getting me to that end goal. So that was a huge aha moment for me, which came from some of our practices or our training here in the NLP process. Was I'm not achieving the end goal that I want. What do I need to change in my behavior in order to achieve that? And that was a huge shift for me.
That's one of the things you do really well, is that if you really want to get to where you want to be, you really want to fulfill your life's purpose, what you're really called, what you're really passionate about. And it takes a very special person. In order for anyone to be successful at anything, you have to first know where you're headed, but then be very clear with the direction you're headed and be 100% flexible as much as possible of how you're going to get there. And if one strategy of the hyena yelling, shouting, if it's rooted in anger, no judgment, no problem. But if that doesn't get you the results you want, then how open and willing are you to change your strategy? And that's how you evolved and grown. And instead of running with the hyenas, it's more like, well, let's talk about these little baby elephants that are actually really powerful and really maybe don't quite know yet that these resources and tools are here. And let's start with where you're at. Number one is introducing, planting the seed, or bringing awareness. That's a really big thing I hear you talking about, is bringing awareness to people and just saying, look, this is here for you to learn, and let's start with where you're at.
Right. And it's such a gift. Just walking away from the first 101 class, life looked different. And we keep joking with everybody in the class here that we've been doing this for 5-6 months now, and it feels like a lifetime ago. It feels like a completely different life. Way back when, 3 months ago.
Right.
Life looked different. Processing information was different. Interacting with people was different. There was such a reactiveness. And that's what I've seen even in the people that I've started to work with. Just the awareness of what's happening when other people do things and the feelings that it triggers in you, that you can control that you can manage that you can address it, and you can, like you say, give it a big hug and heal and connect it. It doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't have to be hard. It happens. It's all still going to happen in one way or another in your life to bring up the things you need to look at. But when you start to see them as gifts, for little keyholes to look into to things that you need to heal, as opposed to painful things that are happening to you, it's so powerful. I've seen people that are a week ago hurting in their homes, because of the things that the people in their families maybe were saying to them, which is their program, is their maps, and to be able to separate from that and to see that's theirs, it's not mine. I don't have to internalize it, and the freedom that comes with that and the lightness that comes from that is again beyond words. It's just so powerful to see someone freed from the obligation to internalize and react to the things coming at them. We don't have to do that. So
yeah, and now you have tools to actually intervene and help a person to find out, how have you been doing what you've been doing? How do you do that behavior so well? How do you respond to it automatically? Where does that come from? To be able to get to that root cause. And if it's a problem for them, you have now the ability to make a difference, make a shift, and what I share a lot of times with these NLP techniques is that in my experience, 80% of the time when you work with somebody and a shift happens, then 80% of the time, if the shift happens, it occurs inside of you, the other person or the other situation doesn't happen anymore, because you're not holding that unconscious frame that this is the way life is and there's no other choice. And then the rest of the 20% of the time, the person might still do that, or the situation might still happen, but you have no response, no reaction to it. There's no reaction. It's just at peace or whatever you choose. So that's kind of, it's interesting to, in some way, intervene in somebody's karma in a very positive way, to be like, look, to reach out a hand and be like, this can help. It's not just, I believe this can help. It's actually, this works. I'm a living proof of it. And let me just share it with you.
Right. That was a huge factor for me in the power of NLP. Was after the first couple sessions, the first couple weekends that we were up here, I started to see complete shifts in the interactions in my house. And not just like with my husband, that definitely shifted in that first week, and a lot of things were healed there. But to see my daughters act differently, things that as a mother I had fears of them, me passing on my wounds to them and the unhealthy things in my life, and to realize that when I healed them for my girls also, and they don't need to do that. I had that knowing in my heart that was happening, but then to go home and see a difference in their energy, in the way that they interact with each other, in the way they interact with me, and the way they interact even with themselves, was so powerful to see. In a 6 and a 10-year-old, they aren't as consciously aware of the shifts that are happening for them, but I could watch it and see, night and day difference in the anger, the frustration, or the reactiveness. It just completely changed when I healed those things for me, and the way that I triggered to them without even telling them that that's what I'd done. Just the shift in my energy changed that for them. So it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go and tell everybody. It's not a belief system. You're not getting new belief systems unless you want a new belief system. Then the practitioner, you can help people change that according to what they want. But it's not, you have to read these things, believe these things. It's not like a new religion. It's psychological technology. It's human technology that's available to be used, and the way that you see fit.
Yeah, and that's what that just made me feel like, that elephant energy. Like, you don't go shouting it at everybody. You just walk forward.
Yes.
And people know you're there, and they can sense your energy, and they can sense your power. You're just standing there. You don't have to yell. You don't have to do anything. Really, just be and let your light shine. That's powerful.
That's beautiful and powerful. And you have a really interesting intake on masculine and feminine energy that I think that it would be really good for people to hear, and then really ultimately balancing that. So what is your history, your story, your take, how did you share that with people? That's really important.
Well, it's interesting. Like I said, I really identified within as an activist, as a feminist, as a loud and proud woman, all of that.
You said you did. How long ago?
3-4 months ago. It's interesting, as I started to shift and recognize all of that was so stemmed in anger, and I looked at what it was triggering for me, and healed and connected those things. So now things still happen. I still see things that I don't appreciate or don't align with what I want, but it doesn't create a charge in my chest, a pain, anxiety that spins me out of control, makes me angry, and makes me want to, yell and do something about it. I can see it. I can stay in a centered place of love and determine what's the best way to actually get to the end result of connection and healing it. And it's a completely different thing. It's a completely different reaction, response, all of that. And so I grew up with 3 sisters. I'm the oldest of 4 girls, and I have 2 daughters. So there's just a lot of feminine energy in my family, and have experienced through my lifetime a lot of objectification, victimization, or attacks. People doing things to me as a female from a male perspective. All of that. All now I recognize as experience is valuable to me and my path. And I take ownership of that in a very powerful way. So I thought fighting the masculine was what that looked like, or what that was supposed to be. And I'm coming to realize that it is a balance of the masculine and the feminine in all of us. And the one thing that I've seen in some very respected men in my life, in you, in my husband, and there are several men that I've met even at the Unschoolers platform that I went to last month, seeing men that are aware of and in touch with and comfortable with the feminine energy within them, how powerful it is. What I've kind of an aha moment was when men, not all men, but a majority of the young boys and men in our society are taught to not like to reject the feminine that they have within them. It's weak, or it's whatever it is, whatever label you put to it. And when they are so angry and resistant to the energy within themselves, that also reflects in the way that they interact with and treat women in their lives. And that when a man can acknowledge and respect and honor the feminine within them, that changes the relationship that they have with the women in their lives. But in order to get to that place, women right now, or a lot of women who I was 3-4 months ago, as far as being angry and resistant to that, I had to fight it. I had to challenge it. I had to yell at it. I realized that was not getting me to a place of helping someone else acknowledge, connect, and see the feminine within. It was doing the opposite. It was creating, a reaction to a very angry feminine that they were seeing. So, which actually, like you say, is very masculine, actually.
Yes. Women using masculine energy to fight masculine energy.
Right.
Those two negatives don't equal positive.
Right, because you're in a female body doesn't mean that using the masculine energy is going to shift the system. I do believe the feminine, and this isn't man or woman, boy or girl, any of that gender, it's the feminine energy will shift the system. Even I've seen this, like at Standing Rock. I feel like that was kind of an example of that peaceful protest. They were not aggressing. They were holding prayer in a peaceful way. And I think things went differently than they would have and could have had they been ready for war and wanting to fight. That would have turned into a violent clash, even more so than it was. There was violence, coming from one side. But because they were holding that space in prayer and they were coming, that's what it feels like is the feminine was the prayer for holding peace, and they were not being aggressive and moving forward. And because there was nothing for the authorities to fight against, they really couldn't create a war. It couldn't happen because the other side wasn't fighting. It takes two to butt heads, and when one refuses, it can't happen. So it was very powerful to see a real life example of that energy.
And one of the things we talk about, and that kind of came in through me and channeled, and this is over years of training or discovering what the difference between the masculine and feminine energy is. That, so for people that have never heard this before, I feel like it's important to share, and you shared this is quite a bit of it as well, is that masculine does not equal man and feminine does not equal woman. Because, and the example that I get, I always go at extremes, and I just open up a lot of files in the mind, because we've all met men before extremely feminine, women are extremely masculine, and then there's transsexual and transgender, which a lot of transsexual and transgender people have a lot of confusion within themselves. So if they're confusion within themselves, how do you classify them? And then now there's millennials or people coming up that's, in colleges that every 30 minutes I want to be Ms., Mer, Z, blah, 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 all these different things. So there's all kinds of things. The point I'm trying to make is, the whole going back to we were made in God's image, and it's so true, but not God's image as a vision. It's more God's energy, which is there's two sides to God or the divine. There's the masculine and the feminine. Just like there's a reason why there's a left and right brain. The left brain is the masculine, the right brain is the feminine. Left brain's more logic, the right brain's more feeling. The head itself, the mind is more it is masculine. The heart is feminine. Doing is more masculine. Being is feminine. Thinking is more masculine, feeling is feminine. So there's all these different things, giving and receiving. Giving is more, not that women can't give, but giving is more masculine, receiving is more feminine. Just like energy flows on the one side of the body and the other side of the body. So that's the biggest thing, is ultimately what we're here to be as human beings, and what I came with and what you're getting as well is to become completely balanced. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of women out there that are super getting charged up with masculine energy trying to fight men. Or masculine energy, which is it's all mind stuff. It's all the mind trying to create another conflict so it can fight. But exactly that is the feminine energy's acceptance. It's like accepting the acceptance, even accepting resistance in self, because there's people out there that's like, we want to accept the sunshine, rainbows, and butterflies, but we don't want to do the people that are all upset. True and total acceptance is unconditional, so no matter what, there's just, you can be perfectly as you are, like your kids, you know, like you're on your these little beings. That's even somebody's angry and violent, and I like how we in the system pick apart, like, what is anger? You know, anybody, you said that you had anger before coming place from anger, and I would say from my heart is any human being that has anger, it's because a part of them's not getting their needs met. There's no judgment, it's just see if it's true for you. And if that part got its needs met, which is what happened in this training, there's no more anger. Not that you can't experience anger or feel anger, and anger can be really beautiful and really great, and especially if it's connected anger. But disconnected anger can be really nasty.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because it's been kind of a process for me to heal that internally. I'm no longer feel the charge and the impact of things happening around me. But because the activist part was such an identity for me, like I wanted to be a change maker, to shift into this softening and this understanding that I can be a change maker in love. And it doesn't mean inactivity. It doesn't mean just light and love and peace. It still means action. It still means speaking when I need to speak, and it still means challenging things that I feel led to challenge, but it's from my heart and it's not from my head anymore. It's not from I have to because then this and this and this will happen. It's right now, right here, I need to say this to this person, and that's what will shift whatever it's meant to for them. There was a lot of sending my energy out, away from me, from what's going on in DC, what's going on wherever, anywhere other than where I'm at right here, right now, and to bring that back in to my heart space and know that I have power right here. And this is the only place that I can impact change, is what I'm going to do right here with this body, with the people right here with me. So that was a huge shift too, and it's settling in, you know, to recognize I am a change maker and can create powerful change, and it's rooted in love now and not anger. So yeah.
Which the amazing thing about that is, one thing that I channeled was masculine energy is more dominant. It is. I don't know if anyone can argue that, but if I just leave it and stay there, then somebody that might have a charge about that and want to defend the feminine with masculine energy might say something, but it is. Masculine energy is more dominant. However, feminine is more powerful. Dominant and powerful are two different things. Dominant is, the way I explain it and the way I see it is, domination is more of I don't know, it's just more masculine. Not that it's not men, it's just the energy. Yeah. So people that want to win, if you want to win, isn't nothing wrong with it. It's just more masculine. If you want to be right, it's the more masculine energy. If you want, like us and them, any separation, any division, even if it's anti-blank, that's masculine energy. Mother Teresa didn't have any of that anti-anything. It's pro-peace. It's focusing on what you want. Focusing on what you don't want is more masculine energy. Focusing on what you do want is more feminine energy. So not that masculine is not bad and feminine is not good. They're both, you need the sun. The sun is more masculine. You need the sun to give nutrients and to have this whole thing work for us to survive. But you can get too much sun, you can get burnt. Then you need the opposite. You need the balance. You need to action. You need to do things in life, but you also need rest. Exactly. So it's just that perfect balance. But that's what I see, what I feel in meeting more people like you. It's what's coming up through us is the emerging of the feminine energy. Not that the feminine is going to take over. Not that it's going to be 100% feminine. No. You know, it's going to be a bunch of Amazon women. You know, I mean, do watch the Wonder Woman coming up in the summer. It's coming up, and it's gonna. I think it's kind of be like that, where it is like they come from like that. And I actually loved Xena the Princess Warrior growing up, and it's more from the. I have nothing wrong with Amazon women. I don't think Amazon women would have a problem with me because there's more balanced, but. It's not Planet of the Apes with apes rule over humans, humans rule over apes, women's rule over men. It's not that at all. It's the balance of the feminine where it's going to come in through people's hearts. And it's really about getting people's needs met, and then it's internally the shift happens simultaneously, externally the shift happens, and people just get along, focus on what works, and really help each other get their needs met and really enjoy our time on Earth.
Yeah. I see structurally it was really hard for me to shift from anti-whatever. It was a protest, anti whatever it is that I didn't want anymore. And wasn't getting me the result I wanted. That was putting and tying me to energy that I wanted to release. And it's been a very intentional shift for me to, that's kind of the go-to, and that's kind of what it feels like to me is the structure of society right now. That's what we do. We attack the problem as opposed to focusing on the solution towards what we want, because by protesting whatever we don't want, we're sending it energy. We're giving it something to fight against, as opposed to, when it takes two to butt heads, if the other one just refuses to even acknowledge and be a part of it, it can just spin in its own circle. It can't affect anymore. Mm-hmm. And so that's been, big for me, even like with my girls. I've trained them, I've led them, I've shown them, I've encouraged them to be vocal, to be strong in themselves. I've been confident, and I feel like I guess I would do that for any human, little boy or little girl, to be confident and stand in your truth. But like through the whole this last election cycle, there was a lot of us and them and anti whatever, and
just all us and them, masculine, anti-masculine.
Yeah,
and they're fighting the masculine.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And pulling all of us back to focusing on what we want. Let's stop looking at what we don't want. Why are we facing that way? Let's focus on what we want, on love and connection and healing. And I say that, and I've experienced this ascension where it really becomes like I'm above all that. I'm not. I don't have to do anything. I just love and light, and that's very feminine, right? And it's lacking the action part, the motion, the do. So the balance comes into play when you can hold that space and accept what is, and continue to move forward from the place of love, as opposed to from the place of aggression and from the head telling you what it is you're supposed to do to fight this. So it's been a huge shift, shift in my life.
And the practice is to be as you do. Because being is feminine. It's just being. That could be meditating, that could be observing, it could be awareness, could be stillness, could be just non-responsiveness, just being. Just really, there has to be a level of consciousness for that. And doing, you could do as programs, or we can do consciously. But it's if you be as you do, that's the balance of masculine and feminine. That's the internal and external, the left and the right, the top and the head and the heart. And there's, one of the points I wanted to bring up was, I thought it was really interesting from my point of view that, I think I shared this with you, Marilyn Manson, Eminem, Ozzy Osbourne, Donald Trump. I'm trying to think of NWA. All of these artists or people got their careers launched when there was huge resistance towards them. Christianity is, as a group, launched, Marilyn Manson in a big time, and there's people in politics launched NWA, and it's all this resistance, universally, whatever you resist persists. And so I think we talked about it, the day after the election, I think it was inaugurated, Trump on Friday, and then Saturday there's a huge protest. If Trump was a business, not his businesses, but if he was a business and you would have put stock into him, his stocks would have rose because of all the resistance, all the anti-Trump. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and get together and go anti-anything and watch it grow. Yeah. Watch it. It's voting, for it. And one thing I was interested in, and there's people that might be listening to this that might be more identify with like a hyena, and a charge might come up. No problem, no judgment. Right. But how does that feel? If I say something or somebody says something and it feels really negative, or a fear, this intensity comes up, is that a part connected or not? Is there something to look at? And that's what we're in the business of doing, right, and is connecting that. Another thing I thought was interesting, just channeling pure energetically without opinion of the mind. Trump was in a way higher level of feminine consciousness than Hillary was, comparing two side by side. And what I mean by that, you can't look at it through the mind and just say, oh, he's a man, he's more masculine. He felt more. He was more authentic, in my point of view, in my opinion. He was more authentic. Hillary was super, in my experience, inauthentic. That's the biggest thing that people had. And then people say in politics, pick the lesser of two evils, but it's like, okay, if you want to focus on what you don't want, or this or that. But she had a lot of things that a lot of people didn't trust her, and a lot of things inauthenticity, and then the Benghazi thing, and not getting political, just specific current events. And he was, even if you didn't like what he was saying, it was his truth. Nobody told him to say that. Mm-hmm. He wasn't reading off scripts, like 100% authentic. But then the micrograb, we said this one thing about women or one thing about Mexicans, and man, what a hard life to live in if so many of us in our 30s or getting into our 40s that we didn't have social media when we were in high school,
Right.
and didn't have things. What happens if we would have tweeted some of the things, that we'd experienced, or if we had someone had FaceTime and recorded us at some of the parties and things like that? Well, yeah, there are some different things. So the millennials have that it's tough, in a way, because like anyone can record and put you on YouTube right away.
Yeah.
But then just you say one thing and then to be defined by that, which is, I don't know anybody else that lives like that. People say things all the time, but there's a lack of awareness.
Right. And it's been interesting too, because I mean that the whole election cycle, and again, like, not to talk politics, but to the reaction and the energy that it's created in my own life, and I think in a lot of people's life, it created a reaction, a head-based reaction of fear.
Brought up charges big time.
Right. Big charges for me personally. And I know a lot of people. And then to look and see that I see and I hear of things happening, and the fear was that they would happen to me. And then I was putting my power out to where it was happening, as opposed to, okay, so if it does happen to me, how do I handle it? How do I react or respond? Respond from my heart. And that's the only responsibility I have, is to do the best that I can for myself and the people in my life. And I can still help people, and I can still advocate for people, and I can still stand beside people, and I can still love people without hating and without being angry about the bigger pictures outside of my scope of power. So,
because you've personally gone through a lot of your own personal adversities and things in life. You're not just somebody who's just saying words. You're somebody who's lived life and been on earth and had some pretty sometimes traumatic or challenging experiences, and you fully have and are connecting all those pieces, and just exactly what you said before, I'm using it, I'm taking it and using it as growth, as learning tools,
right.
And that gives you an advantage to be able to help other people who maybe be more like baby elephants, who haven't yet fully awakened that part of them, like the spiritual, not even just like spiritual seeker part, but spiritual actor part, spiritual activists, people that are actually taking action, stepping up, saying like, this is what I feel, and you might not like that, there's nothing wrong with you liking that, and I still feel this way, and me feeling this way is not getting you to, it doesn't mean you don't have to feel exactly the same way for us to like each other.
Yeah.
So for you to get into more of that coaching now, that role that you're in, and helping people, working one-on-one with people, and then definitely eventually groups and speakings, that's just huge. I think it's a huge asset, a huge value to anybody listening right now that might be resonating with your energy at all.
Yeah. One, and you brought up, just the things that I've been through. It was interesting that I wanted to identify with the parts of me that were offended on behalf of those parts of me. So as a woman, as a minority, as my mother was an immigrant, she was born in the Philippines, as a rape survivor, like so many things have happened in my life, and I wanted to cling to being offended on behalf of those things. And what I had to stop and ask myself was, does this feel good? Does this take me to a healthy place? And it really wasn't. It felt like I was doing something, like I was being active and I was staying in that anger, but it was not good for me. It was not a positive thing. And then to be able to step away from those identities and realize that there are things that happened, but they are not who I am. And as an individual and as a person, it feels stronger and more powerful and more positive to be in this place where I don't have to be offended. I can choose to disagree, and I can choose to not accept whatever that is, but I don't have to react.
Powerful.
I don't have to, right? It is so powerful, and there's so much gratitude now to walk in a place where I don't feel like a victim. I feel like I have the authority and the power in my life to respond in the best way that I can in any given situation.
Mm-hmm. And be even more equipped in future situations. I know you've been starting to take jiu-jitsu classes and things like that, which is my favorite martial art of all time. And That's just kind of neat. It's the empowerment. I'm all for like the physical, like martial arts. Absolutely, find yourself a great teacher and great martial art, and definitely do that. Spiritual practice, it's the same thing but at a different level, and just to bring that energy forward, and just no matter what happens in life, are you going to be connected? And that's what
Right.
the balance, and that's what it's all about.
Well, being fearful wasn't protecting me in any way, as opposed to connecting and what do I need to do to feel empowered. It's funny, the things that came into my life. So I started the NLP and really learned this idea of allowing. Don't resist, just allow whatever comes in. It doesn't mean it's always going to be pleasant. It may be right. It may be uncomfortable, but allow it and figure out what it is, or connect with it and heal it. And then I did a trial jiu-jitsu thing in the first class. His name is Jason Clark in Iowa City. He was talking about jiu-jitsu and just allowing the energy, allow them to move and use their force, and then unschooling. I go to an unschooling
Right.
platform, and it's all about allowing your children to become and allowing your life to unfold. And it's like, okay, I get it. I understand loud and clear. This is the key. Allow, just allow. And it's powerful. It's exciting, to not know what's around the corner and not feel scared of it. Not trying to control, not trying to make sure things are a certain way. Just allow. And who knows what it'll be, but it'll be incredible.
From a heart space, from a connected space.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So what would you say, there's people that are listening out to this podcast right now that are really resonating and connecting with you, that what can you say for encouragement to help them make the leap to either reach out to you for support, or to find their tribe, or to do whatever they're here to do in a very positive way? What kind of message would you give them now?
Well, from my own experience, I would share the power of intention, of focusing what you want. I mean, you've challenged me in that way. I want to help people. Oh, really? Everybody? Do you want to help the lady walking down the street right now? And I had to really be focused and intentional about what that was and what that wasn't. And it was amazing within a week of setting that list and that intention of who I wanted to connect with, of the elephants and that energy. People coming into my life and calling or meeting up with or connecting, like my circle has grown tenfold just in the intention of setting that energy very clearly and defining that in a way that I had never realized was important before. Just to say I want to help is so broad, and I do. I would help anybody, and I could help anybody, but who do I really want to connect with? Being very clear about what that was shifted who came into my life and who exited my life. I think that I would encourage people, again, with the allowing. It's almost this openness of receiving, kind of getting the head out of the way. I know my first month I wanted to overthink everything. What is this? What is going on? What, does this make sense in this situation, in that situation, in that situation? I really wanted to overthink it. And when your head is so loud, you can't hear the subtle messages that your heart might be trying to give you, and your higher consciousness might be trying to lead you in the direction. Or you may hear it and then you want to overthink it and but this and but that, what about? And maybe go out on a limb and just listen, see where it leads you. Because if you're really connected and listening to your higher self, it's going to take you exactly where you need to be. And I mean, I would obviously encourage anybody to explore this NLP and this oneness NLP, because of the fact that it really does address real things that are happening in our lives, from fighting with your husband to feeling a certain way when your boss says or does something, whatever, your parents, your kids, all of it. It allows you freedom from the reaction, and to really be whole in yourself and walk through your life in a connected way and in a powerful way.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So what would be the best way? Thank you very much for that. And what would be the best way, like the email? Go ahead and just share people your email address. What's the best way for them to get a hold of you? We're going to, of course, put the email address and your contact information on the bottom of the video.
Mm-hmm. Well, so it's brand new, but the website is innerlighthealingcenters.com. And the email is innerlighthealingcenters@outlook.com.
Very nice.
Yep.
So if you want, definitely, if you feel called to, go inside your heart. And now if you feel, reach out to call and contact Jamy, definitely do that. I want to thank you again for listening. We're going to have all that really good information at the bottom of this webcast, and thank Jamy for being here as well. And just want to remind you, we're going to be signing off this next time. And next time we have an interesting podcast with my wife, Amanda Rangel. It's about kind of a home break-in that happened to us, and just kind of our own process with that, which I think is pretty fascinating, pretty interesting. So stay tuned to that. But again, this is Jamy Rangel from IntraAwareness, and just reminding you once again that consciousness is contagious. You are who and what you surround yourself with, and suffering is optional. Thank you very much. See you next time.